Good morning and welcome back to this 2020-2021 school year. This is always the most exciting time of the year for me, but I realize it's going to be a little bit different. Just like the end of last year was a little bit different. When I think back to the last quarter of last school year, it was February 28th that our community COVID-19 task force got together for the first time to talk about the spread of COVID-19 and what it might do for or to our community. 2 weeks later, on Friday morning, March the 13th, we met again to talk about perhaps closing school. Later that afternoon, I made the announcement to close school for the 2 weeks following spring break to try to stay ahead of what was happening across the nation with COVID-19. Our last student day was March 11th, so when we think about something normal and we perhaps look forward to that happening again, it was March 11th was our last student day. I want to thank you for everything you did during that last quarter to get us through it. It was a crazy time, it was difficult, it was hard, but you did whatever it takes to get us through and to make sure that our kids had a quality education in a very interesting, challenging, different time. And so as we look forward to this school year, we have hard decisions again to make. I'm anxious, you're anxious, our parents are anxious, our students are anxious. It's just an anxious time as we get back together. So as we all go through those range of emotions that we might have, again, we're trying to make hard decisions. And a part of those hard decisions are coming back to school. How do we reopen? And as you're well aware now, we're in school this week, a very different week, getting ready for a very different school year because we have delayed the start of our school year to Monday, August the 10th. We have an extra 2 days for teacher preparation. And with those preparations, we're trying to get as ready as we can for getting our students back into the building. But part of those hard decisions too have been the options that we've tried to create for our families. Besides coming back to school in the traditional way, as traditional as it might be in these times, we've also provided 2 remote options. One, Bridge, is a flexible option that allows students to go back and forth a little bit more readily than the other one. We would like to see a commitment for 4 weeks or so, but again, this is probably the year of yes. We want students to stay with our school corporation. We're going to work with parents, students, to have them be a part of our school corporation. And so the Bridge option gives us the flexibility for doing that. The CVP, or Columbus Virtual Pathway, is a pathway that we've had in place now for, this will be year 3. 2 years prior, we've had it. Some of you may not even be aware of that, but last year our Columbus Virtual Pathway had about 80 students. As we get ready to start school on Monday, August the 10th, and I think about those 2 options, those hard decisions that we've made in regards to getting school started and providing those options. We have about 3,000 students wanting to participate in school that way. 2,300 about will be participating in Bridge, and about 600 participating in the Columbus Virtual Pathway. When we put those numbers into perspective, almost 3,000 kids, that is about 26% of our student population. And just for Bridge, 2,300 itself, it now becomes our biggest building. We already had 18 school buildings. We basically have added 2 more to our management system. And the Bridge, 2,300, is now bigger in enrollment than any one of our other buildings. To put it into to make another comparison, from a school corporation standpoint, it's bigger than most school corporations in the state of Indiana. Most school corporations are around 2,300 students or less. And so just a big thing that we are trying to manage and trying to make sure that parents, students who choose that type of start for the school year receive a very quality education. But now, putting the other part into perspective, if we have 26% of our students participating in one of our 2 online options, that does mean we have 3/4 of them coming back to us, coming back in person to be in our classrooms, in our buildings. And we have put forth mitigation strategies to deal with that. As we pay attention, close attention to what is going on with COVID-19, and we bring our students back into the building, we will be screening every day, taking their temperatures. We'll be requiring face coverings. We will be practicing physical distancing. We will be washing our hands a lot, and we'll be cleaning things, all items, as frequently as is possible. When I think about physical distancing, it's probably the question that I get the most. Okay, all these other things seem to be in place okay. I'm not so sure about physical distancing. I get that. If you're looking at your classroom numbers, you may not notice much of a difference. There are differences in many cases across the corporation, but maybe for yours, there aren't. That your numbers are the same or maybe slightly higher than they were before. We are continuing to work on that. But we know that physical distancing can be more easily accomplished given that we have less students in the buildings overall. So whether it's transition periods, it's lunches, it's recesses, it's any of those other things, in our buildings, we simply have less students because of the remote options that our parents are choosing. At our elementary schools, for example, we have between 54% and 87% of our students coming back into the buildings. So think about that. In one of our elementary schools, 54% of our students are coming back, meaning 46% will not be starting school next Monday physically in the building. That will allow us to do some things from a physical distancing standpoint. At our secondary schools, the range is a little bit tighter. It's between 75 and 81%. But again, thinking about the size of our secondary schools, 75 to 81% are coming back, meaning 19 to 25 aren't. And so that gives us an opportunity to practice physical distancing more so than we would have been able to otherwise. Oh, and cleaning supplies. There is a rumor that I've heard, I've been called by the Republic, I've seen this on social media, that we do not have enough cleaning supplies to start the school year. Let me put that rumor to rest. We have plenty of cleaning supplies. Thank you to Dr. Bozeman and his team for ensuring that we have the supplies necessary for your classrooms, our buildings, the entire school corporation to make sure that they are cleaned appropriately to meet the needs of you and our students. We do want to thank the community for its continued efforts to try to add supplies to this. We'll always take more supplies if somebody's going to organize an effort to get those to us, because there may be a need at some point in time, but certainly not now as we start the school year. We have what it takes to get us started at this point in time. So as we look at the 3 days now that we have this week, and we think about all of those things that we're trying to do to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, physical distancing I've referenced, but also the wearing of face coverings. As we start the year and we get our students back in front of us and we lay out our PBIS expectations, the wearing of face coverings is key. We have COVID-19 indicators that help us determine what our school status is going to be. What is the spread in the community of COVID-19? Right now, we see it as a moderate spread. If we go substantial, other things will happen. I'll talk about those in just a second. But one of those key COVID-19 indicators is compliance with the wearing of face coverings. We would like to be at 100% all of the time. Each week, we're going to try to take a snapshot of time to see what percent of our students and our staff members are actually wearing their face coverings. It is a critical piece of addressing COVID-19. The other things we'll also lay out for you and help you, because as you get into your buildings, work in your buildings, get the school year started, work in your classroom, these 3 days are for that, to try to get you to feel as prepared as you possibly can be to welcome our students back into the building. We will also be spending some time on e-learning, just in case we have to go to that all virtual model for all of our students. Returning to the COVID-19 indicators, I talked about mask compliance. That piece really doesn't play into whether or not we're going to consider the community in substantial spread or not. It's a key indicator for us, something we want to measure, something we want to track, but it's the other measures, things like the number of cases that we have per 100,000 residents, the percent positive rate that we have, the hospitalizations within our community. What is the test turnaround time here locally? What's happening then in counties around us? Do we have hotspots within our community? We will consult with our local health officials, representatives from Columbus Regional Health and Bartholomew County Health Department to try to help us make those determinations. And if we see numbers going in a direction that's not good, we start having red show up. If you remember our reopening plan, we have red, yellow, green, red being substantial spread. We get to substantial spread, that might take us to all e-learning. And so we need to spend a little bit of time this week just making sure we are prepared for that, because it will be different. Last year, again, thank you. You did an awesome job of taking a 1, 2, 3 day model and turning it into 9 weeks of instruction for our kids. We'll be different this year. We have to do things differently. We've learned, we've done the plus deltas, we've seen the opportunities for improvement. We will implement those. We will be better. We need to take a little bit of time to make sure that we are better if we have to go to that particular model. As we finish this week and we get to August 10th, again, I know it's different, but it's still exciting. We'll have our students back in our buildings. We'll get to see their smiling faces, kind of. We're all wearing face coverings, but we'll get to see them for the first time since March 11th. Emotions are going to be all over the place. They're going to run high. There'll be sheer joy of being able to see our kids. But there's also going to be a little anxiety that people may be afraid. There may be tears. It's going to be a little bit tough to get started, but I believe that by the end of the day on Monday, getting into the rest of the week, we will be glad that we have our students back and that school has started and we're back to something that looks something like normal. We have had to make some hard decisions. If we go back to last spring, closing school was really pretty easy. Reopening school is really hard. It's going to take hard work from all of us. You, me, our school board, everybody is probably working harder right now than they ever have in regards to this particular job, education. Our kids deserve nothing less than the hard work we are going to give them to get them started with this school year and then to make sure they have a successful one. Thank you for doing whatever it takes for the benefit of the kids of our school corporation. Have a great start to the school year.